All right, welcome back, Fast Willy fans. This is the 6th Poptart Mukbang. Good morning, Judy. If you're new here, what I'm doing is breaking an 81-hour fast by eating 5 packs of Pop-Tarts, which is going to lead into a 10,000 calorie day of eating. I call this the Poptart Mukbang. We've gone through 5 episodes now. The first 4 were trying new flavors of Pop-Tarts. The 5th was one side of the playoff bracket. We had cherry moving on, we had hot fudge sundae moving on, and then in the next round we had brown sugar cinnamon and hot fudge sundae. Today we're going to find 2 more flavors to make the final 4 with brown sugar and hot fudge sundae. Also on today's episode, I'm going to do something a little different. In the past, I have asked for questions that I would give answers to, basically about fasting. But this past weekend, we were gifted a Netflix series called Unwell, which discusses 6 different alternative types of medicine, one of which was fasting. So on today's Poptart Mukbang, we're going to give a review and answer some questions on Netflix's Unwell. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, you should go and watch it. It's about 50 minutes to watch this episode. It's episode 4 of Unwell. There are also other topics discussed in Unwell, such as ayahuasca, essential oils, and a few others. But they're all pretty entertaining. They're all fair and balanced. They bring on experts, half that are going to tell you, hey, this is a good form of medicine. Half that are going to tell you, maybe this isn't necessarily the best way to go about this. My first flavors just came out of the Pop-Tart, so let me show you what we're eating today. Oh, the toaster is set a little bit higher today, which is good. That's the way I like it. I might turn it down. It's a little harder to eat them when it's that hot. But we're going to get into our first matchup of the day, and that is Wild Berry against Confetti Cupcake. Fiona says tournament round 2, absolutely right, Fiona. Let's get it. I also, on the last Pop-Tart Mukbang, I had Bruton's Dairy Chocolate Milk. This time, I have special apple juice that was recommended to me. Martinelli's apple juice. I got this at the Fresh Market, but I also saw it a couple days later at Whole Foods. I'm not sure where else they sell it. I've never heard of it until this week, so I'm going to give it a try right now. I want to go over a few things before we get into the episode. There are a lot of things covered in the episode. My specific focus is on intermittent fasting up to a week for weight loss. And there are other topics discussed on fasting that I don't want to get into that are more medicine related. They talk about treating the inside of your like a leaky gut syndrome. They also talk about fasting for cancer, and I don't necessarily want to get into those topics. That's something that I don't feel comfortable explaining, and I don't want to be wrong on those topics. So I'm just going to focus on the intermittent fasting from like a 16-hour fast to a 7-day fast is really what I'm going to discuss. And the first 3 experts that they have on, this is what they're discussing. So I'm going to focus on those 3, and I'll answer questions on anybody else, but I'm not going to give a full review of what they discuss about 28-day fasting or the oncology side of it or leaky gut or some of the other things that they're talking about more towards the end of the episode. Fiona asks, do you think apple juice goes well with Pop-Tarts? Some of the Pop-Tarts, yes. The apple one that I tried with the apple juice was pretty good. That is good apple juice. Miranda says that's the best apple juice. Miranda, I've never had it before. Alright. Wild berry versus confetti cupcake. Wild berry is more of a traditional Pop-Tart. The confetti cupcake, it's like is really gooey in the middle almost, and it bends rather than like snaps. Whereas like this is a more traditional Pop-Tart. Part of the longer fast, I did have a question that came in that was, what do I think about the True North Health Center is the name of it. And what they do at the True North Health Center is bring people in and they fast for 28 days. And they said, I think they said they have like 1,500 clients a year. It's in Florida. And why do you need to go somewhere to fast? Like, you can just do it on your own. One is, like, if you're going to do a 28-day fast, you probably should have medical professionals around. But the other thing is, with the rise of fasting, I think that people are starting to find a lot of benefits. So do I think that this is like a viable business? I do. I think that it's going to keep increasing. People are starting to find that when you're fasting, you find health benefits. And as long as that trend continues, the trend of places like True North Health Center is going to continue. The guy who runs the True North Health Center had my favorite quote of the episode, which was, people think that if they get on an airplane in New York and fly all the way to California, they'll starve to death somewhere over Colorado. They think that the pretzels that they snack on literally save their lives. It's so true. People think like anytime there's a little sign of hunger, it's like, I need to get pretzels in my body. I'm just like a little bit hungry right now. That's not the case. There's so many benefits to just not eating for a little period of time. I feel like wild berry sounds good. I gotta try wild berry next. It's pretty good. It's one of the better fruit flavors I've tried. And it's been around, you know, I remember like commercials for it. It was like when they would have Pop-Tarts with little eyeballs and stick legs running around. Wild berry was always one of those Pop-Tarts. So I know it's been around at least since the 90s. John, I'm not going to get into your comment because, like I said, I'm not going to get into those, like, longer fasts. John said that there was a guy that died in the episode. That is true, and he was doing a fast for different reasons for longer and different reasons than what I'm talking about. And he had what they call refeeding syndrome, which I will get into later on, which doesn't apply to my type of fasting. Alright, before I say what the winner is, let me get the next Pop-Tarts down. And my next 3 slides are going to be on a topic on each of the first 3 experts that were on the episode. Kieran says, how does fasting compare to others in popularity? I'm not sure what you mean by others there. One other topic we're going to cover just before we get into the experts. Yesterday I was driving to pick up my wife from a doctor's appointment, and I had a Fast Willie fan call me. That's right, I have fans calling me. He said, Fast Willie, I love the experimentation, I love the concept of what you're doing, but I need you to know that I don't think that what you're doing is healthy. And so we got into the topic of the conversation of what I'm doing healthy. And he didn't say that he disagrees with the fasting. He says he disagrees with the food that I'm putting in my body during the refeed. And I'm here to say I couldn't agree more. I told this Fast Willie fan, I agree with you. The foods that I am eating are unhealthy. This is purely an experiment. I hope that people are not watching this and saying, Fast Willie is telling me I need to eat Pop-Tarts and ice cream and Starbursts and all this other stuff. I don't believe that. I'm doing an experiment where I'm trying to eat 10,000 calories to show you guys what will or won't happen to my body. I don't recommend trying this at home. Leave it to the professional. But what I do want to say on that topic, 2 points. One, if I'm getting to 10,000 calories and I'm losing weight and I'm having a hard time getting there, imagine the weight that you could lose if you were eating all healthy, natural, whole foods, putting all the nutrients that you need into your body. You would never get to the amount of calories that I'm getting to. I know John's going to have something to say about that. Me and him can talk about that later on. The second thing is, your body cleanses itself. So what I said to him is, if I'm eating 5 packs of Pop-Tarts one day, is my liver going to cleanse out all of those toxins in 24 hours, and then I'm going to have 3 days where my body is functioning without any toxins or chemicals or anything inside of my body, right? So like if I were to take that and eat 1.25 Pop-Tarts every day and it takes 24 hours to clean out, well, now I'm living my whole life every day with all of those toxins and all the inflammation created from them inside of my body. So there's more things than just the weight loss, but I think that it's important to keep that in mind. Okay, we're going to move on. I'm moving Wild Berry through. The confetti cupcake is pretty good. The Wild Berry is prettier good, right? That's all the better I'm going to give either one of these two. Not the best matchup. All right. We're going to move on to the first person that they have on the episode. His name is Jeffrey Wu. He is the CEO and co-founder of HVMN, which is a sort of a supplement company that's geared towards biohacking. He says what a lot of people say about fasting, which is I didn't come here for the weight loss. I came here for the mental aspect of fasting. And it's hard for me to give a deep dive on this because what my goal was to lose weight. But I do agree with this. And it's not just me and it's not just Jeffrey Wu. Like a lot of the people who are getting into fasting will tell you about the mental clarity that they find once they do start doing intermittent fasting. I'm moving on to the next Pop-Tarts here. And I have chocolate cupcake versus an unfrosted brown sugar cinnamon with butter. Again, it's a little bit hard to get this butter on. John says, that dude eats egg yolks. I know you're about to hype him up. He's a Harvard graduate who runs a science-backed nutrition company who does intermittent fasting, and he separates the egg yolks because you get more nutrition out of a raw egg yolk, but you digest an egg white better. So what he does is he separates the egg, he beats and then drinks the egg yolk, and then fries the egg whites and eats them, and says, like, you get the most nutrition this way of eating the egg. So it's somebody that's something that, if you know me, that's something that I'm interested in. Like, that's awesome. This dude is like trying his best to figure out the best way to optimize the foods that are going into his body. At one point during when he's talking, he says, I feel more behind my eyeballs. I feel like I'm plugged into the Matrix. And that's not me saying it. That's not me telling you. This is a CEO of a nutrition tech company. Fiona says that's actually really interesting. I wouldn't have thought that was an aspect. That came along with it, but it makes sense. Yeah, I have heard that before, but You know me, eggs are the superfood. If this dude's fasting and eating eggs, like Jeffrey Wu, I might send this guy my resume. We'll see. He's in San Francisco, though. I don't know if that'll work out. Alright, brown sugar cinnamon with butter. I'm going to say the same thing I said last time, which is, the first time I had these Pop-Tarts with butter, I was like, oh, this is cool. And I think it might have just been a novelty thing. This is okay. It's nowhere near as good as with the frosting on it. Jeffrey Wu says, who invented breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Did God say that? Or where did we get that from? Which I think is so true. We've been conditioned to live this lifestyle where we wake up and we eat, and then we have a snack, and then we have lunch, and then we have a snack, and then we have dinner, and then we have dessert. Who told us that we need to eat like that? That is what we believe is the default mode. So when somebody, like your crazy friend Fast Willie, says, I'm not going to eat for 3 days at a time, you think I'm the crazy one. We weren't eating every day until 200-300 years ago. What's up, Dre? He also goes on to say that he believes the default mode of humanity is not constantly eating and constantly consuming. The default mode is not consuming. And if you think about that, even when we are eating all day, every day, most of the time we're not consuming. And I think he looks at it the same way that I do, which is through an evolutionary biology standpoint, which I'll get into later on during the fourth slide. Alright, this is a runaway, by the way. Brown sugar cinnamon with butter. Loser. Chocolate cupcake is moving on. I'm going to get my next flavors down. We're going to have a s'mores. It is the return of the s'mores. The return of the s'mores. Sally, Ray, Uncle Jeff. You guys put me on. Now we're going to see if they cruise to the Final Four. Kieran said that he wanted to know about the popularity of fasting versus the popularity of other diets such as keto. Keto is definitely still king right now. But the other thing about it is it's hard for me to consider this a diet. I think it's going back to, like, this isn't, like, there are diets. There's Atkins diet, there's South Beach diet, there's the cabbage soup diet. I think this is a little bit different than that. It's a way of eating for sure. But this is getting back to our roots, as I was talking about evolutionary biology. We didn't eat for long periods at a time while we were becoming who we are. So I think that it doesn't give fasting enough credit when you compare it to other diets. John said, who told us we need to eat it all? I get it. It's like a hyperbole question to kind of discredit Jeffrey Wu. I get it. Go ahead. No. Judy says, because food tastes good, especially Pop-Tarts. That's true. That's true. And the problem isn't fasting or like anything like that. The problem is we have an abundance issue for the first time ever in human history. We've never been able to go to the grocery store and get highly processed corn and wheat sitting in a box that's going to be able to sit there until after the zombie apocalypse, and we have to re-pick up the world and get everything back going, the ones of us that survive because we know how to fast and we know how to get through it. We're going to have to then go into the grocery stores and get the Pop-Tarts and live off of this crap that you guys have been living off of. Dude, chocolate cupcake, moving on. We're going to move on to our third expert. Our third expert is Thomas Stackpole. He's a journalist who had this to say about fasting. Fasting has become super masculine, bro-tastic. I completely disagree with this, but we'll get into it. I like this guy in general, and I like what he was saying. He was almost down the middle, but by the end it seems like he's a little bit anti-fasting, which is fine, because I liked it where his mindset's at, and I can't say that my mind hasn't wondered some of the same things that he has. He goes through all of the diets that he's gone through in his life, and like all the different stuff he's tried to do to lose weight, and it's really funny. He goes through like all that stuff, like mushroom, coffee, that's supposed to boost your metabolism. I've tried this diet, I've tried that diet, I've tried micro-dosing, like, and I appreciate that because I've been there, 100%. I tried everything. I landed on fasting, which was like finally just like the key. I just like figured it out. I figured out how to lose the weight, and I figured out what works for me. So it's hard for me to hear people saying like, oh, this doesn't work or this isn't healthy, because a lot of people who are going to watch this show haven't put in the hours and hours of research. And some people might be like, I want to try fasting. They watch this and say, I'm not going to watch fasting. Or I'm not going to try fasting. I think that's unfortunate. He compares his diets to intermittent fasting, which I just told you about on Kieran's question. I don't necessarily think that there's a link. Like, you can compare them. You're trying to make yourself better through what you're putting in your body, but it's a little bit different. But he believes that the whole culmination of everything... Oh, he also said he tried like a turkey breast and broccoli diet, and then they show this bodybuilder that tells you, and the bodybuilder's like, I don't know how it works, it's just hormones, but it just works. Which was kind of a funny part. But he believes that everything that he was reading about led him to this point where he got on the internet and found an eating disorder website and put in all of his symptoms to see, do I have an eating disorder? And I thought that was interesting. And it said that he has red flags. I don't know the credibility of this website, but I agree with that. I mean, I don't know his history or his background, but it's good for him for trying to figure that out. He does say something that's very interesting, and ladies, you should listen to this part. He talks about Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey, @Jack, is the CEO of Twitter. And Jack Dorsey is notorious for fasting and having a lot of alternative longevity approaches to life. He does like the go into a cryogenic chamber and then like go into a hot tub, things like that, which is supposed to be really good like for your body at a cellular level. Not something I'm an expert in, but things that I've heard like talked about on podcasts that I listen to. But what he says, Jack Dorsey will eat one meal a day, and then on the weekends, he will not eat Friday night until Sunday night, and he calls this an extreme fast. Well, if he's extreme fasting, I don't know what I'm doing. But he goes on to say, if Jack Dorsey was a woman, we'd be having a much different conversation. Right? If Jack Dorsey was a woman, we'd be having a much different conversation. Because we'd be saying that Jack Dorsey has an eating disorder. We wouldn't be saying Jack Dorsey's intermittent fasting for his health and his longevity. We would be saying Jack Dorsey has an eating disorder. And I'm here to say that I believe that Thomas Stackpole is right when he says this. We would possibly be saying Jack Dorsey or Janice Dorsey has an eating disorder. But that is a problem for society. That is not fasting's problem. the way that we treat women in what they put into their bodies has nothing to do with the concept of fasting. So I would say that if Jack Dorsey was a woman and was fasting, we'd say she has an eating disorder, and that would be an indictment on society in 2020, not on fasting. So it's hard for me to listen to that and say like, oh, I put a ton of weight behind this, because even though he's right, it gives a negative connotation to fasting where fasting did not deserve it. John says that this headline would be on all the magazines, and I disagree with this, and that's kind of why I put this up here. Fasting, I mean, I started my Instagram, and a lot of the people who follow me are women. Like the new people that are meeting me through my fasting Instagram and YouTube, a lot of them are women, and I would also tend to think that a lot of other ways of dieting are more masculine. I would think that if it fits your macros is a lot more masculine than fasting. Fasting is more of like a spiritual quest. Like you go into a fast, you know you're not eating for 81 hours, and you're trying to find out like what's inside of you. You really get in tune with yourself. And I don't think that masculinity and getting in tune with the inside of your body go hand in hand. So for me, I hope that I'm not giving off a super masculine, bro-tastic vibe when I'm up here eating Pop-Tarts in front of you. But that's not what I'm going to do. Oh, by the way, s'mores is moving on. John said he met Janice is eating a s'more. Absolutely. Absolutely. Alright, I'm moving on to the next fast because we are going to get into Christy Harrison, who is a registered dietitian. And before I even get there, I just want to say this about the medical field in general, which is when there's alternative medicine and you have a degree behind your last name, you almost have to shy away from it, because if you endorse it and you end up being wrong, you could be liable, and you need to have credibility within your profession. So if you were to tell me a registered dietitian is going to start talking about fasting, I would never believe that she would be saying something positive about intermittent fasting. Let me get the next two Pop-Tarts in, and then I'll roll the next slide. We're going to have raspberry versus chocolate cupcake. Oh, that's what's happening. I'm dropping them in there, not in its little catcher. Got it. All right. Is there anything else left on him? I liked this guy in general. He seemed like a nice guy. He called us dog friend. He called us cat friend. Thought it was really sweet. He was a really nice guy. All right. Christy Harrison is not a fan of fasting. If you didn't know where I was going with that, I maybe tried to lead you one way to say, oh, maybe she's going to say something good. No. She does not want you to fast under any circumstances. Like, if you just ate breakfast and you're feeling a little bit hungry, you should go ahead and eat, because that is your body telling you that you need hunger. She talks about the subtle signs of hunger. She's the third expert that they talk to, and they bring her back multiple times when they start to talk about, like, extended fasts and other things. Chris wants to know, do I think the popularity of fasting runs the risk of more people developing legitimate eating disorders? I want to know what eating disorders you're talking about, because we are the most obese country on earth, and we are more obese now than we were last year, and we were more obese last year than we were the year before that, and every year back to 1960. So you tell me what eating disorders you want me to know if people are going to have more of. Alright, so Christy starts talking about her way of eating, which is called intuitive eating, which is on the rise. The term intuitive eating, watch out for it over the next few years, because it's going to be on the rise, just as keto was 5 years ago and fasting was over the last 2 years. Intuitive eating is next, And this is the one you need to watch out for. Don't be afraid of fasting. Be afraid of intuitive eating, because this is what makes people feel bad. Here are the signs of intuitive eating on a pamphlet that she hands to one of her, like somebody who's there at her clinic. Here are the subtle signs of hunger. She says you don't need to be fasting. All you need to do is know the signs of hunger so that you're only eating when you're hungry. All right. These are subtle signs of hunger. Difficulty making decisions, feeling irritable or annoyed, difficulty concentrating, feeling uncomfortable or agitated, fantasizing about your next meal, sweating, headaches, and nausea. Well, I'm subtly hungry all the time then, Christy. What are you talking about? Difficulty making decisions. You're hungry. If you have a hard time making a decision about what you're having for lunch today, you might be hungry. I don't know. I don't get it. Alright, let's get into this. If you're out there and you've ever tried to lose weight, raise your hand if you ever heard you do not lose weight by dieting. You lose weight by changing your lifestyle. Okay? We've all heard that. Keep your hand raised if you've tried to change your lifestyle to lose weight. And maybe you even lost weight. Whatever changing your lifestyle means to you. Okay? Now keep your hand raised if those lifestyle changes and you lost weight after those lifestyle changes and you kept the weight off. I don't think anybody out there that's watching this right now has their hand raised at this point. Not one. That's not how you lose weight. That's just something that people who have never had a problem with their weight tell other people who have weight problems, oh, it's just easy, you just change your lifestyle. That's all you got to do is change your lifestyle. Who changes their lifestyle? Did you pick up out of your house where you had Pop-Tarts and ice cream and go live in a mini house that you pull behind your truck and only eat vegetables that you're foraging along the side of a highway? That's a lifestyle change. What lifestyle change are you talking about? Yeah, dude, you always think about your next meal. That's the truth. That's just what it is. Okay, you're hungry. This whole intuitive eating trend is just like it's almost scary to me. All right. She goes on to talk, she's talking about the intuitive eating, and she's saying how people who come into her practice, there's a woman there who says I go through phases, I've tried intermittent fasting, I go through phases where it's like I'm feasting and then it's famine. So I feast and I gorge and then I feel like guilty about it. That guilt has nothing to do with the amount of food that you're putting in your body. That guilt has to do with the societal pressure that we put on people to be thin. That has nothing to do, if you take society out of the equation, you could eat everything in my pantry right now and you're not going to feel guilty. You will not feel guilty from the amount of food that you eat. You eat that food and then you realize, oh, this might not help me lose weight. I'm not going to get to that point where I'm losing weight. Now I feel guilty. That's what that is. And then we have periods of famine where we're trying to detoxify ourselves and when we're still guilty and blah, blah, blah. That's kind of what she gets into. And for me, it's so the way to combat that is to listen to your subtle signs of hunger and then only eat until you're full and only eat until you feel nourished and satisfied. It's just hard for me to comprehend who that's not a thing. What a privilege it is in the year 2020 that we have so much food, we have such an abundance of food that we can just say, oh, I'm just going to eat until I'm a little bit satisfied. Think about it from an evolutionary biology standpoint. Do you think that when we were out chasing elks around, we killed one and then we were like, oh, I'm going to eat this just a little bit until I feel not this amount of hunger that I'm at anymore? No, we killed it and we ate it as much as we could because we didn't know where the next elk or the next moose was coming from. So what makes more sense? we come from a place of feast or famine. Absolutely. We come from a place of feast or famine. That's how we ate to get where we're at now. Don, I missed your comment. I'm not sure what that was after. Judy says too much fast food and readily available garbage food. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. You're right. But that doesn't change the way that we ate to become where we're at. Like, food wasn't available until 200 years ago. And even more so, like, since the 50s, since we started processing corn and wheat and soy. And making it shelf stable. Alright. These are really good together, this chocolate cupcake and this raspberry. Oh, yeah. No, I've been eating. I wasn't suddenly hungry. I've been eating, so I'm not plugged into the matrix right now. That's why I missed what you said. Also, I give one exception to the last rule, and that is, if you do believe that feast and famine is the way that we used to eat, but now you think that our bodies have changed or adapted or evolved to a place where we need to be intuitively eating and eating smaller meals. If you think that that's where our bodies are at, and we've evolved to where we're at right now, that's fine. I'll give you that. At least you're giving acceptance to the way that we got to where we are. But if that is the truth, that would have happened over the last 200 years, which would be the fastest one species evolution humankind has ever recorded. Like, you've never seen a mammal just completely change the inside of their digestive tract to do anything such as, like, oh, I need to intuitively eat instead of feast or famine. It's never happened. Alright, chocolate cupcake versus raspberry. I'm moving raspberry on, honestly. This is the best. I had it lukewarm out of the pack because I was being bullied to not toast my fruit Pop-Tarts. But I'm going to move raspberry on. She goes on later on to talk about extended fast. I'm going to put 2 more Pop-Tarts in. We know who's moving on to the final 4. It's going to be s'mores and it's going to be raspberry. Let me get a couple more flavors in here. I'm going to have a raspberry and a confetti cupcake to finish this out. She talks about when you don't eat for long periods of time, your metabolism tends to slow down to conserve energy. I haven't had that problem. I've been out running 6 miles, up to 12 miles fasted. I've been lifting, I've been rowing fasted. I haven't seen my metabolism slow down. We think of metabolism just as like your weight loss tool, but your metabolism is everything and like the energy being provided to your body from your body. She said we see this in patients with severe anorexia. Okay, that's true. Like, that's true. I'm not talking, if you have anorexia or bulimia, I'm not talking to you, or at least I'm not like preaching to you about what I believe in. Like, I'm happy to have you here and I hope that you find help, but like, that's not what I'm talking about. She says that the body ends up catabolizing itself or eating its own organs. Also 100% true. If you don't have fat on your body, it starts to eat its own organs. Absolutely. But we're not talking about that. I still have a ton of body fat on my body, and when I'm fasting, I'm not going to be catabolizing my organs. So it's just like a scare tactic. She is saying that a little bit, like a guy ends up dying, like they talk about a guy who died in 2011, who got refeeding syndrome. The refeeding syndrome is when you fast for a long period of time. We're talking about like 28 days or 30 days. Then you eat and your electrolytes give you all kind of problems and your body ends up shutting down and you end up dying, or not necessarily always dying, but you like have issues, and that might be what happened with this guy. That's not a problem for a 3-day fast. So if you watch this, don't think that like, oh, 3 days. One, I am supplementing with the electrolytes so that my levels aren't going crazy. And two, like, this does not apply. And I have a lot more research. I'm trying to cut it down for time. All right. All right, we're going to move on to the last slide. I have a lot more to talk about with Christy Harrison. Maybe I'll end up doing a more like deep dive into some of these sections of the show, and maybe do like 4 or 5 minute videos and release them on my channel if you guys are interested in hearing more about it. All right, we're going to move on to a bracket update. So, we had s'mores, confetti cupcake, wild berry, raspberry, chocolate cupcake, and brown sugar cinnamon. So, we moved on. Wild berry over confetti cupcake. And then s'mores. I also want to talk briefly, I just want to let you guys know that my challenge ends this Saturday. It will be my last live video for the foreseeable future. I appreciate you guys showing up so many times, and I hope that you'll come back one last time on Saturday. I'm going to have a video coming out in the next few days. It's going to tell you what my next challenge is. It won't include a mukbang. It won't include intuitive eating. You can guarantee that. But it is going to be a lot more health conscious. We're going to be talking about foods that we need to be eating when we're fasting, and foods that might be best for my body. There won't be any processed food. There won't be any ice cream. There won't be any Heath bars. There won't be any apple juice. There won't be any chocolate milk. There might be regular milk though, we'll see. I want to move on from trying to show you guys what the body can do when you're feeding it a bunch of crap, as long as you're not eating for long periods at a time, and show you, I'm going to try to get to the most optimal place for my body. And I'm going to do it for 30 days. It's going to be my next challenge, and I can't wait to share that with you and tell you guys what I'm going to be doing. It's very cool, very actually high tech in 2020, the way I'm still going to be fasting, but I'm going to be fasting in a way that is very interesting. I did a something to kind of analyze my health, and I'm going to use those results to fast. So I'll tell you guys about that soon. Mushroom tea. I'm not doing mushroom tea. Fiona says, woo, I'm excited. Fiona knows what's up. Fiona knows what's coming. I'm having a hard time eating 10 packs of Poptart or 5 packs of Poptart today. I'm not going to lie. I got some water here. I'm going to choke these down. Let me know in the comments, did you like any things that I freaked out about today? Do you want to hear more of some of these topics? And would you like a video of me breaking some of these more in depth? I have a lot more research here. I couldn't get to all of my points. But I also didn't do a lot of eating right into the microphone. I hope you guys like this. Do you like this? My mom said can't wait. Yeah. Also, I'm going to have Pop-Tarts. Like, I have so many Pop-Tarts here now. I can't eat them. So that's going to be almost all of September. I'm going to be not eating like crap. I'm really looking forward to it because there have been a couple of days the next day where I don't feel good. And I'm looking forward to seeing if I feel good when I'm eating healthier foods after the next day after I fast. Intuitive eating. Intuitive eating. Intuitive eating has a bullseye on its back right now. I'm coming for it. It's in my crosshairs. Because I'm not putting up with this. People feel bad when you tell them all you need to do is do a better job of being a good human being. Alright. This went way over.
But I appreciate you guys sticking around. There's still 10 of you after 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Thank you so much. Don't forget, we have chocolate cupcake won this one. And then raspberries into the final four. So we have s'mores, raspberry, facing off in the final four. On the other side of the bracket, we have brown sugar cinnamon and hot fudge sundae. Who thought the fruit flavor was going to make the final four? I didn't. I never saw it coming. Thank you all so much for sticking around and watching this with me. If you have any other questions on the show, Unwell, 4th episode about fasting, please feel free to reach out to me. I love to talk about fasting. I love to talk about... Chris, I never answered your question about bulimia or anorexia. I don't think so. But it's hard for me to say. It's not something that I've struggled with in my life, so it's not something that I personally have done a lot of research on. It's certainly something that they suggest in the show. It's something that Christy suggests, I believe. There might be one other person who suggests, maybe it was Thomas Stackpole, who kind of says like, oh, whatever, this could lead to things like anorexia and bulimia. I think that if you have the mind, if you're not in a great place going into it, I like the experimentation, I like to challenge myself, so that's why I'm going into fasting when I went into it, and I wanted to lose weight. So it's hard for me to know the mindset of what other people are going through and how susceptible they are to anorexia or bulimia. And I'm going to leave it on that. Thank everybody so much for joining me. I will see you on Saturday for the last mukbang. Watch out for my videos coming. I'm going to have at least one day of eating in the next few days to release, maybe 2. I'm going to release what my next challenge is, which I'm going to be starting on Sunday. And I'm also going to be chatting with John this afternoon. And we will be releasing an episode of Fast Track within the next couple of days. So thank you so much for all of your support so far. I will see you Saturday morning. Thank you.